the NAFA webinar series, providing you with timely information and training on topics of interest. This is Brendan Burnett, Director, Professional Development and Education Programs. Today we are presenting Getting Prospects to Return Your Calls. With me today is Wendy Weiss. Wendy is known as the Queen of Cold Calling, an author, speaker, sales trainer, and sales coach. Wendy is recognized as one of the leading authorities on lead generation, cold calling, and new business development. Wendy has been featured in the New York Times, Business Week, Entrepreneur Magazine, Selling Power, Inc., Forbes, and various other business and sales publications. She is the author of Cold Calling for Women, Opening Doors and Closing Sales, and the Sales Winner's Handbook, Essential Scripts and Strategies to Skyrocket Sales Performance. Today, Wendy will help you with the age-old question, how can you sell when you can't speak directly with your prospect? To that end, during today's webinar, Wendy Weiss will show you the 3 powerful strategies to bypass voicemail altogether and the voicemail formula, a proven method to see your prospect response rate jump. So let's begin. Welcome, Wendy.
Well, thank you, Brendan. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. And hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here with you today talking about what I think is the #1 issue facing sales professionals today, facing people that use the phone to develop new business. And that is getting your prospects to return your phone calls. So I want to hear from you. That's how I want to start. I want you to type into the chat box if you wonder whether or not you should be leaving voicemail messages. Type yes into the chat box if that's something that you wonder about. And also type yes into the chat box if you wonder why nobody ever calls you back. Okay, I'm seeing all the yeses coming in. Capital letters, yes, yes, exclamation mark. How about this? Type yes into the chat box if you think you have better luck with email. Okay, and yeah, I'm seeing more yeses coming in. And you know what? It's not actually about luck. It's more about skill and strategy. I'm going to be talking about that later on. And how many of you wonder, type yes into the chat box, if you wonder about how you can ever sell if you're never able to speak with your prospects because they don't pick up their phones and they don't return your phone calls. Type yes into the chat box. Okay, we are on the same page. That is what we are talking about today. Now, for those of you that do not know me, I will share that I was never supposed to be the queen of cold calling. I was actually supposed to be a ballerina. That's a picture of me when I was 5 before my very first recital. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I moved to New York City, where I still live and work, and I moved here as a teenager to dance. And then, eventually, like every artist in New York City, I needed a day job. I waited on tables for a while. That got kind of tired pretty quickly. And then I got a job with a telemarketing company that did business-to-business development. And it turned out I was good at it. Who knew? Because ballet dancers, we don't talk. We dance, we don't talk. I did that day job for a while, and then I started my own business where I had clients that I would represent, and I did all the new business development for them. And it was actually one of those very first clients that dubbed me the queen of cold calling because I was able to find so many opportunities for him. From there, I segued into the business that I have today. The business that I have today is working with sales professionals, working with consultants, with business owners, people that need to develop new business. And I've got to tell you that I feel like I'm doing something that's pretty darn important, especially today because it's still difficult out there. And I've trained thousands of sales professionals and business owners, entrepreneurs, consultants to use the phone to develop their businesses. I use the phone. I'm calling prospects every single day. I still prospect every day. I've trained top producers. I've helped people become top producers. So I'm really happy to be here today with you to share some of the ideas and the techniques that I've used to build my business and that my clients are using to build their businesses and their sales. So thank you for taking the time to be here today, because I know you could all be doing something else, and you've taken the time to be here. So in the short amount of time that we have together today, I'm going to give you the very best information that I have to give you. So this is what we are going to be discussing today. This is what you will discover. First of all, we'll be talking about eliminating frustration, because it's pretty darn frustrating to call people, never be able to speak with anybody, never have them call you back. So let's get rid of the frustration. And what you say matters. When you leave that voicemail or send that email, what you say matters. So we're going to talk about some simple tweaks that you can start making immediately to get prospects to return your phone calls. I will also, my goal for today is to give you some tips and some tools that are going to help you immediately increase your results, because I want you to leave the session today with at least one new tool or one new idea that you can try out right away. And for those of you at the end of today's session, if you feel like you'd like some help to get to the next level, I will be telling you about my book, The Sales Winner's Handbook, and inviting those of you who are ready. I do have in the spirit of full disclosure, I do have a special offer for you, and you will be able to order my Sales Winner's Handbook later on. But in terms of what we're going to be discussing, if you are brand new, never done sales before, then probably everything I say is going to be a revelation. If, however, you've been around for a while, I'm going to ask you to keep a beginner's mind, because being successful, whether it's in prospecting or in sales in general, it's not about what you know, it's about what you do. And sometimes it's the real simple little things that are going to make the most difference for you. And the best example that I know of this is in sports. If there's a team that has a losing season, at the end of the season, the owners fire the coach, they go out, hire a new coach. What's the first thing the new coach does? The new coach goes back to the team and says, back to basics. So it works exactly the same way here. And if you get one tip or one idea from today's session that gets you one return phone call or one appointment or one new client that you wouldn't have otherwise had, then our time together today will have been well spent. I will be taking questions at the end of today's session. That is my favorite part. So please, if you have questions as we're going along, type them into the chat box where you've all been typing yes, 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 yes. Type your questions into the chat box, and it will be my great pleasure to answer your questions. So grab a pen and paper, your tablet, whatever it is you're going to use to take some notes, and here we go. First off, the question that I get asked all of the time, people will say, well, you know, Wendy, should I leave a message or should I send an email? And, you know, I'll tell you, my answer to this has changed. If you were on a webinar with me maybe even 5 years ago, I would have said, if you get voicemail, hang up and call somebody else. However, it's hard to get hold of people today, so it does make sense to have some strategies to get prospects to return phone calls. Now, sometimes people will say to me, oh, well, I have better luck with email. It's really not about luck, and I'm going to be talking about that. But I do want to give you 3 strategies that you can use right now to bypass voicemail. So here is the first one. If you get voicemail, or if you call a prospect and you, the gatekeeper asks you if you want voicemail, before you say yes or no, ask some questions. Be a detective and ask that gatekeeper when you might be able to reach your prospect directly. What time does the prospect come in the morning? How late are they in the evening? If they're in a meeting, when are they done with that meeting? You want to ask some questions, gather information, and find out when you might be able to reach that prospect directly. If you are making business-to-business calls, really good times to prospect are before business hours and after business hours. If you're calling high-level executives, They come in early, they stay late. Support staff comes in 8:30 to 4:30 or 9 to 5. So if you call before the support staff comes in or after the support staff has gone home, there's a good chance you might be able to reach that high-level executive or that business owner who is coming early or is staying late. A good choice B is actually during lunch, where a decision maker might be at their desk and their gatekeeper has gone out for lunch. Third one, make sure that you have all the contact information for your prospects. You know, I've been in business over 20 years now. 20 years ago, we had one phone number. That was it. There was one phone number. Well, today people have their office lines. They're going to have a cell phone. They're going to have email. If you're calling consumers, there might be a home line and a cell phone. So try and make sure that you have all the contact information, because that will enable you to reach out multiple times in different ways. Okay, so let's say you've called your prospect and you get voicemail. In order to answer the question, should I leave a message, we have to ask ourselves another question, and I'm going to ask you this question. If you leave a voicemail, type this into the chat box. What is your goal? What is the purpose? If you leave a voicemail, what do you want to happen? Type that into the chat box. And the same question with email. If you send a prospect an email, what is it that you want them to do? Okay, so I see some, wow, this is coming in so fast. Okay, some of you are saying you want to get an appointment, you want to get a new client. Okay, for those of you that are saying you want a new client, not quite. The sole purpose, for those of you that are saying an appointment, not quite. The sole purpose, your goal, when you send a prospect an email, or if you leave that voicemail for your prospect, your goal really is a response. You want your prospect to call you back, or you want them to respond to your email. Yes, of course you want to talk to them. Of course you want an appointment. Of course you want to turn them into a client. That is all later. What you want, those of you that have said get a response or get a call back or get an email back, bingo, you won. That is correct. That's what we want. We want our prospects to respond. So what gets in the way, and what do we have to do to get prospects to respond? Well, the first thing that has to happen is that your message has to arrive. Now, with voicemail, that's not so hard. Unless your prospect's voicemail box is full, chances are that your prospect that message will arrive. It's not so clear-cut with email. Just because you hit send on an email does not mean that it makes it into your prospect's inbox. And the reason for this is that there are spam filters. Everyone has spam filters on their email. The internet service providers have spam filters. The companies have spam filters. So there are all these spam filters. So you hit send, that doesn't mean it gets there. So I want to give you a few things that you have to think about when you send an email to a prospect, because did you know the average open rate for people that do email marketing, and email marketing is different from prospecting because email marketing is one email to many, whereas prospecting is one email to one person. But the average open rate for companies that do email marketing, the open rate average is 10%. So think about that. And so here are some things you want to avoid like the plague if you are sending an email to a prospect. First of all, your company has probably given you a really nice signature block, nice graphics, your logo, all that stuff. Do not use it. You want to try and send text emails only, because all those graphics can get caught in spam filters and then your prospect doesn't get your email. Do not send your prospect an attachment because first, attachments get caught in spam filters, and second of all, people that are sophisticated about email will not open an email from somebody they do not know that has an attachment. Later on, you can send prospects or clients attachments, but as an introduction, no attachments. You don't want to send emails with a lot of links because that can get caught in spam filters. So you want to make it really, really simple so that when you send off that email, it increases the likelihood that your prospect is actually going to receive it. So let's assume we've left this voicemail and or we've sent an email. Let's assume that it's gotten there. The next thing that has to happen is you've got to get your prospect's attention. They've got to listen to your voicemail and they've got to read your email. Let's assume that you got the attention and they do listen to it and they do or they read your message. Well, the next thing that has to happen is that they know how to contact you. Okay, and I'm seeing something in the chat box from Jennifer who said some of us that work for broker-dealers, they don't allow us to send an email without a signature block. If you have to use the signature block, Jennifer, you have to use the signature block. For those of you that are able to eliminate it, that might make it a little easier for you. Okay, so your prospect, once they get your voicemail or they get your email, they need to know how to contact you. So if you are one of those people that mumbles your phone number at the end of a voicemail, the chances are that prospect is not going to call you back. We want to make it really, really simple for prospects to return phone calls. And so when all of these things work, that the message arrives, it gets attention, they listen to it, or they read it, they know how to contact you, it does increase the likelihood that, Eureka, you're going to get a response. So what gets in the way then of your prospects responding? There are actually three challenges, and I'm going to take them one at a time. And you might want to write these down. Here goes. This is problem number one. And what most people do is sometimes they're leaving messages, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're sending an email, sometimes they're not. There's no system. They're kind of just winging it all the way to delete. That's what a lot of people do. Now, Peter Drucker very famously said, what's measured improves. And what that means is if you are doing the same thing time after time after time, and you measure it, you actually know whether or not it works. And if you change something and you measure it, you're tracking what you're doing, then you know if that change makes it better or makes it worse. So you can continually improve your results. But if you are winging it, if you're doing, one day you're leaving voicemails and saying one thing, and the next day you're leaving voicemails and saying something else, and the next day you're not leaving a voicemail but you're sending an email, you don't actually know what works. So what is the solution here? The solution is a voicemail campaign. And for those of you, if you have email addresses and you're able to send emails, because I know sometimes you can, some people can, some people can't. But the solution is a voicemail campaign. A voicemail campaign is a series of messages that you leave over time. Think of this actually as a drip campaign for voicemail. People that are marketers, let's say email marketers, they don't just send one email. They send multiple emails over time. People that do direct mail, they don't just send one postcard or one letter, they send multiple things over time. And the same thing happens here. And the way this works, I'll give you a sequence. Let's say that you are going to do a 4-call campaign, which is usually where I start. If you have email addresses, you're going to be reaching out to that prospect 4 times by voicemail and 4 times with email. So week 1, you call your prospect. If you do not reach the prospect, you leave them a voicemail, voicemail 1, and you send email number 1, which is very similar to voicemail number 1, and I'll talk about what to say in just a little bit. You wait about a week. If you haven't heard back from your prospect, you call them again. If you get voicemail, you leave voicemail number 2, which is different from number 1, and you send along email number 2, which is the same as voicemail. Voicemail and email mirror each other. You wait about a week. If you haven't heard back, you call them again. You leave voicemail number 3 if you get voicemail, and you send email number 3. You wait about a week. If you haven't heard back, then you call them again. If you don't reach them directly, voicemail number 4, email number 4. So what you are doing is reaching out to that prospect 8 times, 4 voicemails, 4 emails over the period of a month. What this does, it does a few things. First of all, it builds rapport. That prospect is hearing from you consistently over time. It increases credibility. Maybe that prospect doesn't know your name the first time you leave that voicemail, but what happens with repetition is around week 3, they start to say, do I know this person? I think I've heard of this company before. I think I know this person. I've heard of them before. And it's simply because you've been reaching out to them. The third thing, and this is really the most important thing, repetition increases response. That is marketing 101. Write that down and underline it. The chances of a prospect calling you back if you leave them 1 message or 2 messages, might it happen? Yes. Is that the most likely scenario? Probably not. And I have a client that I was just working with in California. They had no system. They had no process. Sometimes they'd leave messages, sometimes not. Sometimes they'd send emails, sometimes they wouldn't. So we put a voicemail campaign in place. We did it with email. And at first they were astounded, but now they've gotten used to it. Every single one that is using this system is getting prospects to return their phone calls. Okay, so that is the first challenge, not having a system, and the solution to that is putting this voicemail campaign process into place. Okay, here's the next thing that gets in the way, and that is what you say in that message, in that voicemail or in that email just simply doesn't make any impact. And the reason is that, unfortunately, nobody cares what you do. That's the truth. Nobody cares. And so if you get on the phone and you leave a message that goes, I sell insurance, or I'm a financial advisor, or we have homeowners insurance, and we have auto insurance, and we have health insurance, what you are doing is you are making yourself and the product you represent, you're turning yourself into a commodity. And your prospects think a commodity is a thing. And they think, well, you know, I've already got that thing. I don't need another one. And so what happens is they delete your message. That's what happens. Imagine that everyone is listening to radio station WIIFM. That's radio station, what's in it for me? That's what your prospect is thinking. How can this help me? In addition, you do not want to tell your prospect everything in one voicemail, nor should you, because they will simply be very confused, and confused prospects do not return phone calls, they delete. So, because remember our goal is to get somebody to respond. So we want to tell them enough to whet their appetite, have them think, okay, this is interesting, I would like to have a conversation, and get them to respond to your voicemail message or to your email. Now, we're talking about voicemail and email right now. Most people have exactly the same problem when it comes, these two problems, making yourself into a commodity and too much information. Most people have exactly the same challenges when it comes to an introduction, when you actually get somebody on the phone. And the Sales Winner's Handbook which I'll tell you about later on, does have sample voicemail campaigns that you can take a look at and use as a model for your own. So what is the solution here for this, making yourself into a commodity and too much information? This is the voicemail formula. This is what you want to do when you leave a voicemail. The first thing that you want to do is say your name and your phone number at least twice slowly. Say it at the beginning of the message, say it again at the end. This, in and of itself, will increase your response rate because we want to make it really easy for people to call us back. The next thing that you want to do after you say, hello, my name is, my phone number is, and you say it really slowly, you want to lead with, rather than listing all the products, you want to lead with the value or the outcomes or the results of the work that you do with your clients. And let me give you a more concrete example. I was working with a client recently, and she's a financial advisor, and I said to her, well, why should somebody work with you? And she said to me, well, we meet with our clients, and we ask them a whole lot of questions, and then we analyze all their financials, and we make recommendations. That's a long list of all the things that she does. Remember what I said earlier, nobody cares what you do. So I said that to her, nobody cares. How are your clients better off after you've met with them and you ask them all these questions and you analyze their financials and you make all of your recommendations? How are they better off? Give me an example of a client you've worked with and how they were better off. And she said to me, well, I just met with a new client, young single mother. She has a couple of young children, and she wants to make sure she's going to be able to send them to college. And so I was able to help her put together a plan, and if she sticks to the plan as we've laid it out, when her kids are old enough, she's going to be able to send them to college. That is a story, that is a true story that resonates. And that is an example of a challenge that a prospect has. They want to send their kids to college, that this financial advisor is able to help them with. And so what you want to say in your voicemail, if you work with young mothers or young married couples that have young kids that want to be able to send them to college, you can leave a voicemail about working with people that want to make sure that they can send their kids to college. And that's going to resonate much more than listing all the different products that you have. Okay. Once you lead with that, and it can be as simple as, we have a track record of helping our clients send their kids to college. And you can give an example. Now, I know you have confidentiality issues. I am not saying that you're going to reveal any confidential information, but you can give an example and simply say, I recently worked with a young mother who wanted to make sure her kids would be able to go to college. She had 2 young children, and we put together a plan so that she could do that. That's an example. And so what you are doing in leaving a voicemail like this or sending this in an email is you're talking about real life challenges that people have that you can help them with. And that's what you want to do, because that's what's going to get people, that's what's going to resonate with the people that you're calling, and that's what's going to get them to return your phone call. And in every message, you could give a different example. Okay. The last thing that you need to do in this voicemail formula is you do need to ask that prospect to call you back. You do want to let your prospect know what it is that you want them to do. And the same thing in an email. I want to talk for a moment about email subject lines, because clearly you don't have subject lines in a voicemail, but your email subject line, that is one of the things that's going to get a prospect's attention. So you do want to pay attention to what you put in your subject lines. And A subject line, asking a question, can be very compelling in a subject line, either about something that you're writing about in your email, or a subject line that I use all the time very successfully is, should we talk? Question mark. Another thing that you can do is use your prospect's name. So if your prospect's name is Jack, Jack, comma, should we talk? Question mark. You want to keep your subject line short because your prospect might be reading it on their phone. So you're not going to write War and Peace in your subject line. Keep it under 40 characters. And here's the most important thing. Your subject lines and your emails should sound like you wrote them. You don't want an email that reads like the marketing department wrote it. You want an email that sounds like you. Same thing with your voicemail. You need to sound like yourself. And I have a client who has been following this voicemail campaign process and the voicemail formula. She used to leave messages all the time and nobody ever called her back. And now she's having conversations with 25% of the prospects that she calls because prospects are returning her phone calls. So some of them she's able to reach directly and a whole bunch of them are calling her back. 25% is a very high conversion rate. You'll be able to learn more about voicemail campaigns. There are samples, as I said, examples in the Sales Winners Handbook, and I'll be telling you, be sharing that information with you later on. Okay, so here is challenge number 3, no call to action. You know, I was doing a training session like this a few weeks ago, and I had somebody say to me, well, you know, I never leave my phone number in the voicemail because, you know, I'm going to send them an email and they'll have my phone number in the email. And, or they, you know, they can call me back from the caller ID. And I was kind of shocked by that because you do need to be able, you want to make it so easy for people to call you back. And maybe somebody has a really old phone and they don't know how to access the redial button to call back. You send them an email, the email doesn't get through. You want to make it really, really easy for people to call you back, and you want to be very clear about what it is that you want people to do. So this is really challenge number 3, that you need a call to action. And I'm going to give you 2 different types of calls to action. And I know you're going to want to write this down. The first, because remember the goal is a response. Even if somebody says, go away, it's better to have a prospect say, no, I do not want to talk to you. That is better than trying to reach someone endlessly and never ever getting a response. So our goal is to get the response. And there are 2 types of calls to action. The first is a direct call to action, that in your voicemail you say, please call me. My number is, and you say it really slowly so they can write it down. And in an email you might say, please call me at your phone number, or respond to this email and let me know a good time to contact you, and I'll do that. The second type of call to action, and I consider this to be an indirect call to action, and I call this the move on message. Okay, the move on message is actually a strategy that you use as part of your voicemail campaign. Now, if you'll remember earlier, I was talking about a voicemail campaign, which is a drip campaign for voicemail, and I talked about doing starting with 4 voicemails, and if you've got email addresses and can use email, 4 emails. The move on message, no matter how many messages you're leaving, if it's 3, if it's 4, if it's 5, whatever the number is, the move on message is always the last message in the sequence. And the move on message, let me put up the slide that says last sequence. This is actually the most returned message in the sequence. And the move on message goes like this. I've tried to reach you a number of times to discuss, fill in the blank with whatever it is you want to talk about. I haven't heard back from you. I know you're really busy, so I'm assuming this isn't a good time for us to have this conversation. And I don't want to make a pest of myself, so I won't be contacting you again for a while. I will check back, and you name a time frame. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. That's contingent on how many leads you have. And then you say, if you've been meaning to get back to me and haven't had the chance, I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss, fill in the blank. And I'm going to repeat this because I know somebody's going to ask me to do that. First, of course, you say hello, your name, your phone number. I've tried to reach you a number of times to discuss, fill in whatever it is you want to talk about. I haven't heard back from you, and I know you're really busy, so I'm assuming this isn't a good time for us to have this conversation. I don't want to make a pest of myself, so I won't be contacting you again for a while. I will check back, and you name a time frame, 3 months, 6 months, a year. If you've been meaning to get back to me and haven't had the chance, I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss, and you fill in the blank with whatever it is you wanted to talk about. Again, this is your name and your phone number. And then you send along essentially the same thing in an email. The subject line I always use is haven't heard from you. This is the last sequence, the last message in the sequence. It is the most returned message in the sequence, and this is why. You do have to have left some good messages before that. However, if you stop and think about it, there are people that are in the market today. They are looking for an insurance broker. They are looking for a financial advisor. For whatever reason, they are in the market. They've been meaning to call you back. They just haven't gotten around to it yet. There are also people, maybe they're not in the market today, but because you've left some articulate messages previously, they're thinking, you know what, I should have a conversation with this person. And they will also call you back. And here is the third reason this works. Think about it from your prospect's point of view. From your prospect's point of view, you are a salesperson. The expectation is that the salesperson will call again. That is what your prospects expect, that you will keep trying to reach them. What most salespeople do, unfortunately, is they call once or twice, maybe 3 times, and then they stop. And they never tell the prospect, I'm not going to call you again. They just stop. But your prospect thinks you're going to call them again. So what you are doing here is you are saying to that prospect, I want to be respectful. I don't want to make a pest of myself. I'm not going to contact you again. I'll reach out again in 6 months. And the ones that want to talk to you will return the phone call or respond to the email. And most of the time they say, oh, I'm so sorry. I've been meaning to call you back. I'm sorry I haven't returned your calls. That's what they say most of the time. Okay. If you do not hear from that prospect, you've left the move on message, you've sent the move on email, but you still think that that is a good lead for you, you don't throw them out. What you do is you recycle them. So, and this again is completely contingent on how many leads you have. That if you don't hear from the prospect and you've got a lot of leads, maybe you call them in a year or 6 months. If you don't have as many leads, maybe you try them again in 3 months. But this way you are reaching out to prospects consistently over time. It is a prospecting system. That's what it is. And that's what is going to increase your results. Okay, so we spent some time today talking about how to get prospects to return your calls. And the first thing that I discussed was having a campaign, a voicemail campaign, and if you've got email addresses and can use them, you want to do it in conjunction with email. We know Marketing 101 teaches us that repetition increases response. So if there's somebody that you're reaching out to and you go through your voicemail campaign and you don't hear from them and you recycle them and you try them again in 6 months, it simply increases the likelihood that they will respond to you because repetition increases response. That's not what most people do. Most people say, this person's not interested, I'm never going to call them again. You are better off putting together this system and reaching out to prospects consistently over time, and putting together a voicemail campaign is what's going to enable you to do that. Follow the voicemail formula. And the voicemail formula is that you make sure that that prospect knows how to reach you, and you do that by saying your name and your phone number slowly at the beginning of the message and slowly again at the end. And in the body of your message, you talk about however it is that you truly help your clients, not about all the products, not about your process, not about all the questions you're going to ask and how you're going to analyze, about real human challenges that your clients have that you're helping them with every day. And then the third thing that you do want to do, you want to be very clear with your prospects about what it is that you'd like them to do, and that is a direct call to action. Please call me. Please call me at whatever your phone number is, or respond to this email and let me know a good time to contact you, and I will do so. And then we've also got the indirect call to action, which is extremely powerful. And when you use this consistently, you will find that your prospects are calling you back. Every client that I have worked with over the years that is using this kind of system is getting their calls returned. And just think about this for a moment. Even if only 1% of the people that you're contacting, if 1% of them returns your phone calls, what would that do to your numbers? Imagine that. And you should be able to get more than 1%. But even worst case scenario, you follow the formula and the campaign and use the move on message, and you only get 1%, you're still way ahead of the game. So I'm going to open up for questions. I see there are questions coming in the chat box. If you have questions about anything that I've been talking about today, or how it works, or other questions about telephone prospecting, this is a very broad topic, so don't have time to cover everything, but if you have questions, please type them into the chat box, and it will be my great pleasure to answer your questions. Before I do that, however, if you got value from what I've been talking about today, it's really just the tip of the iceberg of all I could show you, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't extend the opportunity for you to take it to the next level. So this is what it's about. It's the Sales Winner's Handbook. The subtitle of the book is Essential Scripts and Strategies to Skyrocket Sales Performance. And I wrote the Sales Winner's Handbook because the two questions that I am asked all of the time are, Wendy, I'm so uncomfortable on the phone. How do I get over being uncomfortable? Or, Wendy, what should I say? And I'm a big believer that if you know what you're going to say, you're not going to be that uncomfortable. So that's why I wrote the Sales Winner's Handbook. It is a what you should say in just about every situation that's going to come up kind of book. It's 155 pages. There are scripts to get the appointment, respond to objections, close sales, essentially scripts for every situation that's going to come up. And there's a whole chapter on questions, 144 of them, qualifying prospects, gathering information, justifying pricing, closing sales. And it comes with $227 worth of additional extras, business building audios and guides, and those are simply included. There are examples of voicemail campaigns. There are examples of introductory scripts. My big corporate clients have paid me millions for these scripts, but you can have the scripts that you need when you order the Sales Winner's Handbook. Here is the link. It is bit.ly.com/NAFA, all in caps, -2015. And Brendan, if you'd be good enough to put that in the chat box so people could just click on it. When you order in the next 24 hours, you will save 15% on the book. You have a choice. We have a physical book. We can ship it out to you. And we also have it available as a PDF for instant gratification. These are the extras that come with the book, and these are all digital, so they are also instant gratification. You will get Finding Your Ideal Prospects, those who are most likely to buy. That's a video. It's a $99 value. Yours free. You're going to get a copy of the interview transcript that I did with Jeffrey James on getting prospects to return your phone calls. More information for you. You will get the voicemail report, how to name and reach the decision maker. That's a $27 value. You'll get the Ideal Leads Quick Start Guide. That's a $27 value. That's yours free. You'll get the Ideal Prospect Profile Workbook. That's a $47 value. Yours free. So that all comes with the book. They're digital, instant gratification, and you have a choice. We will either ship the book to you, or you can get the PDF. When you order in the next 24 hours, you will save 15%. The physical book is normally $47. The PDF is normally $40, so it is 15% off of that. And it comes with my personal guarantee. If you order the Sales Winners Handbook, PDF, or the physical book, and you get it and you're not happy, you let me know. We will refund your money. I will tell you that almost never happens, but should it happen, that is what we do. Okay, so Eric is telling me that the page says it expires in 8 hours and 12 minutes. Okay, I will fix that as soon as we are done, Eric. You have 24 hours to order the Sales Winners Handbook. But that said, go ahead and order now, and then you don't have to worry about it. Thank you for clicking on the link. Okay, so I am going, I see we have a ton of questions. So Brendan, do you want to go through some of these questions for me?
We do have a large number of questions, and we have multiple questions with our attendees very interested in the one word that can make a difference. You mentioned that one word makes a difference. What is that one word?
It's not that there is one specific word. It is that the way that you talk about how you help your clients, saying it one way will get an I'm not interested or a delete on the voicemail or email. Saying it another way will get somebody to call you back. So the example that I gave you was of my client that's a financial advisor, that when I asked her how she helps her clients, she said, oh, well, I meet with them, and I ask them a lot of questions, and I examine all their financials, and I analyze their financials, and I make recommendations. That's a list of what she does, and nobody cares what you do. So what I asked her instead was, how does doing all of that help the people that you work with? Give me an example. And the example that she gave me was of a client that wanted to be able to send her kids to college. So what you say to a prospect matters, and it's the difference between being able to engage with someone when you get them on the phone or getting them to call you back, and having them simply delete your voicemail or delete your email or say, I'm not interested.
The next question, do you leave a voicemail and send the email on the same day?
Yes. Each voicemail 1, email 1, are pretty much the same. Make sure you spell check your email. But other than that, they're pretty much the same. Voicemail 2, email 2, pretty much the same. Voicemail 3, email 3, pretty much the same, and so on. And what I do is I leave the message and I send the email. I'm giving people on that day 2 ways to respond to me.
The next question, will this webinar be recorded? And I'll go ahead and answer that. The webinar is being recorded, and all of the webinar attendees and registrants will receive an automated email within 2 business days that will provide a web link whereby you can access the streaming video of the recorded webinar. And moving on to our next question, Would you give us an example of your first voicemail? The one that says, so leave me a message about taking this course to the next level. Just want to hear your voice inflections and tone.
Okay, now I'm confused with what the question is. The question is they want an example of a voicemail?
Yes, of your first voicemail.
Okay, this is going to be different for everyone. You know, unfortunately, I cannot give you a generic, you should all say this, and prospects will return your phone calls, because what you say has to be relevant to the person that you say it to. So I'm going to go back to the example of my client that was working with people that have young children that want to be able to send them to college. She might say something like in a voicemail, she would say, hello, my name is, my phone number is. We work with clients who want to be able to send their kids to college. For example, I just worked with someone the other day who had 2 young children. She's a single mom, and she wants to make sure that her kids are going to go to college, and we were able to put a plan in place for her, and she's no longer worried about whether or not she'll be able to send her kids to college, and I'd welcome the opportunity to have a conversation with you. Please call me again. My name is, my phone number is. That might be an example. It depends on who you are calling. You wouldn't leave that message if you were calling senior citizens. You would only leave that message if you were calling people that have young children. So you got to bear that in mind. What you say has to be relevant to the person that you say it to.
We have tremendous interest in Wendy's Move On message. We have one attendee who says, can you go over the Move On message again? And another one who says, as a reward to those who have invested our time today, can you post your full Move On language on your website?
The Move On message, the full message, is in the Sales Winners Handbook. But I'm happy to repeat it again. It goes like this. Hello, my name is, fill in the blank, my phone number is, fill in the blank. I've tried to reach you a number of times to discuss, and you fill in the blank with whatever it is you want to talk about. I've tried to reach you a number of times to discuss whether or not you needed help making sure your kids would be able to go to college. I haven't heard back from you. I know you're really busy, so I'm assuming this isn't a good time for us to have this conversation, and I don't want to make a pest of myself, so I won't be contacting you again for a while. I will check back in. Choose a time frame, 3 months, 6 months, a year. It really just depends on how many leads you have. Then you say, if you've been meaning to get back to me and just haven't had the chance, I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss. Fill in the blank with whatever it is you want to talk about. Again, this is your name, your phone number.
Next question, would you ever text someone?
Yes, I would text someone. I will tell you that you do have to be careful with this. Believe it or not, there are people in the world that do not text. And usually they're baby boomers frequently fall into this category. Some of them do not text. So I would be careful with that. Oh, and I should add another thing. The reason I would be careful with that is some of them have plans that they have to pay extra for every text. That's why you want to be careful, because if you text them and they have to pay for it, they're going to be annoyed.
And we have a question regarding ordering the book. An individual says that they recently purchased the Sales Winners Handbook, and they want to know if by virtue of being on the webinar today, if they can also get the extras.
They should have, if they purchased the book, they should certainly have already received them. Ask them, please send an email to my assistant, whose name is Kim. It's kim@wendyweiss.com. And if you'd be good enough, Brendan, maybe to type that in the chat box, then simply email Kim, let her know that you did purchase the book and that you need her to resend the extras because you didn't get them.
Thanks, Wendy. That's Kim at wendyweiss.com. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
Excellent. That has been sent out. We have a question. Let's see. I can get names and phone numbers pretty easily. However, emails are difficult for cold calling. Any suggestions on how to obtain emails in conjunctions with names and phone numbers?
Okay. It does depend on who you're calling. If you're doing business-to-business calls, it's not that hard to get emails because all you have to do is ask the gatekeeper or look at the website, and usually you'll see a pattern. If you are calling consumers, that's different, and you probably have to look at getting a list that has both phone numbers and email addresses. Okay. I'm actually seeing Robert asking a question about ordering the book and the PDF. You know what, Robert? Send us an email. Send Kim an email, and we can arrange that for you.
And we do have another question. What should I say when the gatekeeper says, "What is this in reference to?"
Okay, good question. That would be another whole hour webinar, so I'm going to give you the mini version. The mini version goes like this. If Indra Nooyi, who is the CEO of PepsiCo, if Indra Nooyi was calling one of your prospects, and the gatekeeper says to Indra Nooyi, "What is this in reference to?" I am willing to bet that she would not say, "Oh, well, gee, I'm the CEO of PepsiCo, and you know, we also make you know, Pepsi-Cola, and we also make Gatorade, and we have Tropicana and Quaker Oats. Maybe you've heard of us." She's not going to say that. She's going to say something like, "This is Indra Nooyi," or "Please tell whatever the prospect's name is, it's Indra Nooyi." Okay, so I know what you're all thinking. Hey, Wendy, I'm not the CEO of PepsiCo. That's okay. The idea is that when a gatekeeper says, "What is this in reference to?" the answer is some version of, "Please tell the prospect it's your name from your company," said with a whole bunch of confidence. Okay. The complete gatekeeper scripts are in the Sales Winner's Handbook. I've laid it out like a map. If they say A, you're going to say B. If they say C, you're going to say D. But that is the basic lesson, that you don't have to tell the gatekeeper everything, but you have to say your name and your company name with a lot of confidence.
Next question, if we have a signature block that has our contact information in it at the bottom of the email, should we also put in the body of the email our contact information?
Yes. I always say, "Please call me at my phone number," or respond to this email and let me know a good time to contact you, and I will do so. You know, we want to make it easy. So your phone number is in there twice. It's in there in the body. It's in there in the signature block. Now they have two places that they have your phone number. Plus it's on their voicemail twice.
And we have time for just a few more questions. This is a very interesting one. If you have current customers already doing business with you, how do you get them to call you back concerning your effort to market additional product lines to them?
Okay, well, you've got to give them a reason. Just like with a new prospect, there has to be a reason for them to call you back. So whatever the product lines are, what are the challenges that these product lines solve? I'll give you another example. I have a client who is an insurance broker, and he was telling me about a new product that they had. He just got a new client, and this particular client, early 60s, had some health issues, did not have any kind of disability or long-term care policies, was very concerned what might happen to her if she got sick or as she got older, and she'd never been able to get this kind of help. And so this company had a new product. It was it was life insurance with a long-term care rider. That's what it was. And so he was able to help her, and she got this policy. She was really, really excited and grateful because that was a problem for her. She was worried about her future. And so if you have those kind of products and you have clients that haven't been able to get that type of insurance for some reason, and it's a new product that you think might work for them, the idea is not that you call them and say, hey, I want to sell you another product. The idea is that you call them and you say, I'm aware that you have this challenge, and we now have something that's going to solve that challenge. Let's talk about it.
We're about out of time, so we're going to wrap up with two very quick final questions. One of our attendees has observed that physicians are notorious for being hard to get past their gatekeeper, so do you have any special advice for reaching out to physicians in their office? And then the last question, what should I say if my prospect says I'm not interested?
Okay. Well, as far as physicians go, you are absolutely right. They are very hard to get hold of. I would recommend that you ask the gatekeeper when the physicians return their phone calls, because that lots of times they'll be returning their phone calls later after everybody else has gone home. They're in their office or they're in early, and you might be able to get through to them that way. Because I've worked with a lot of clients that are selling into physicians' offices. Another thing that has worked is calling at night when you know they're not there, but the idea is you're leaving the message that the physician might get before support staff comes in. If they have email, certainly email is a tool that you could use as well. Sometimes, choice B, sometimes, if you can't do it any other way, is to coach that gatekeeper, but that's always kind of a last resort, to coach the gatekeeper to talk to the physician, but I always see that as a last resort. And then the last question, I'm sorry, what was the last question again?
I'm not interested.
I'm not interested. Oh, yeah. Okay. There are only two reasons that people say I'm not interested. The first reason is you're not talking to the right person. So if you are, especially if you're selling business to business and you're not talking to a decision maker, for example, they might very well say to you, I'm not interested. They don't literally mean I'm not interested. They mean I'm not the person that makes the decision. So you have to be very targeted about who it is that you're calling. The second and much more common reason that prospects say I'm not interested is that you are not saying anything interesting. If everybody that you talk to says I'm not interested, you really need to take a step back and say, what is it that I am saying? Because this is, you know, what you say matters. And so you've got to take a look at what you say, and is there something else that you could say that would get the attention of these people? These are human beings. What you say to them has to be relevant, or they will say I'm not interested.
Excellent. We are out of time. Thank you, Wendy, so much for your presentation today. As a reminder, to access today's presentation, please use the web link provided in the automated follow-up email that you'll be receiving in 2 business days. Thank you all for joining us today. This concludes the NAIFA webinar.